Storytime about how I tried to get my boyfriend back for cheating on me, but I ended up with an STD instead. So a little background information. I was dating this guy for about 7 months whenever I was in high school. And I would always hang out with him, his guy friends, and their girlfriends. Well, the one night we were hanging out at my house and he kept checking my phone. And he said it was because he was waiting for his mom to text my phone. So then he had to go to the bathroom and he asked to take my phone with him. And I said no because that's weird as fuck. So while he's in the bathroom, I get a text from a random number. And it's a bunch of videos that my boyfriend took of him doing the nasty with other girls. And there were like 15 videos, all different girls. So by this time, he's been in the bathroom for like 15 minutes. So I go to confront him while he's in the bathroom. Like, I do not care at this point. And he's gone. My bathroom window is wide open. My curtains are broken. So then I start to text all of his best friends. Like for part 2. Part 2. So it turns out the person who sent it to me was one of the girls in my friend group. So at that point, every single person in that friend group was dead to me and I needed to get every single one of them back. So like I said, I started texting all my ex's best friends and I asked every single one of them if they wanted to hook up. 4 of them said yes, the other 3 just blocked me. And the 4 who said yes all had girlfriends in our friend group. Well, the girls in my friend group had no idea, so they invited me to their party. And at that party, it was my mission to do the dirty with every single one of those guys. Well, there was this bathroom in the basement, which nobody knew about except the girl whose house it was. So one after the other, I did the dirty with every single one of them in that bathroom. And I made sure to snap a picture or take a video, so that way I could send it to my boyfriend. I know, I'm crazy, get over it. Well, in the morning, my ex's closest best friend came over. Well, I did the dirty with him too, because my ex hated him being around me, because he was known for screwing other people's girlfriends. Okay, there's gonna be a part 3. Part 3. So a week later, I started having some problems down there. So I had my mom take me to the doctors. Turns out I have a fucking STD. And nobody knew about it, at least not yet. Well, my boyfriend came over that same day asking if we could get back together. So I thought, what an even better way to get back at him. Give him what I have. Mind you, I was still hooking up with all 4 of his best friends. And then like 2 weeks later, my boyfriend started talking to me about how he was also having problems down there. And I was like, oh, maybe you should go to the doctors. So after he went to the doctors, he texts me and he goes, yeah, I have an STD. So then I sent him all the videos of his best friends and I said, yeah, I hope you enjoy living with that for the rest of your life. And I also gave it to all of his friends and then they spread it to their girlfriends. Payback's a bitch. Storytime about how my boyfriend was cheating on me with my stepsister. So a little background information, my mom remarried whenever I was in 8th grade, and my stepdad had 2 daughters, one which was my age and we got along really well. Well, before my sisters and I went back to school, my mom wanted to go on a camping trip with everyone, and my boyfriend was coming because he was really close with my family. So while my stepsister and I are packing up, she starts acting really weird, and we're gonna call my boyfriend Kevin. She was like, oh, is Kevin still coming with us? And I was like, yeah. And then she goes, oh, are you and Kevin still together? And I'm like, we were never broken up. Like, the fuck? Like I said, she was just being super fucking weird. But anyways, we all get in the car, we drive up there, and her and Kevin start being super weird around each other. Like, they were being too touchy. Anytime that I wanted to go do something with Kevin, she would say, oh, Kevin, you can come do this instead. Well, that night, Kevin and I are sleeping in our tent. At least I thought he was. And I wake up to some loud noises in the other tent, like for part 2. Part 2. So like I said, I heard a bunch of noises and talking in my stepsister's tent, and I wake up and my boyfriend isn't in the tent. So I'd be very quiet getting out of my tent, and I go over to hers and I just listen. And oh bitch, I should have just confronted them because I got my motherfucking feelings hurt. He was telling her how he didn't love me at all and how he only wanted to be with her, and how every time that they kissed each other and screwed each other, he felt such a connection between them. So not only was he cheating physically, but they had a connection. Wonderful. So I open her tent and I confront them. This was the most degrading thing I've ever went through in my life. And I said, I heard you guys outside. And I'm just not the type of girl who's going to come at another girl because my man wants her. Because at that point, he's not my man. She goes, sit down, sweetie, we need to talk. Apparently they're in love. So they started dating. They're still dating. And my parents allowed it. So I distanced myself from all of them.
I was adopted at 3 months old. I had a dysfunctional family growing up, but I was cared for and loved. Both my adoptive parents passed away in separate car accidents, my dad when I was 17 and my mom 3 years ago when I was 24. I had a semi-open adoption, but my parents requested my adoptive parents to stop sending them photos and updates about me when I was less than a year old. I had a vague idea of who my parents were. I grew up knowing their names and I had several photos of them. I did a DNA test and was matched with 3 full siblings, which shocked me. I was always told my parents were young, barely knew each other, and wanted to further their education. About 3 months ago, I decided to Google their names and found them on social media. It turns out they're married to each other now with 7 more children they had together. I stalked them on Facebook for a bit and it seems like they have a relatively happy life. I was shocked to find out that I have 7 full siblings and that my sister, who is closest in age to me, is actually only 11 months younger. I was even more shocked to find out that I have an older, full brother who was not adopted out, who is only a year and a few months older than me. I ended up reaching out to my birth mother via Facebook, telling her that I would love to get to know her and that I've had a great life and I have no expectations. She took a month to respond, and when she did, she was surprised that I reached out and to please not contact any of my siblings as they weren't aware of my existence. I didn't respond for a few days, but I ended up just asking her why she chose to give me up and why she never told anyone about me. She responded and said that I was a NICU baby. She and my birth father were 17 when I was born and they weren't prepared to raise a disabled child. She said at the time they were under the impression that I would never live independently and they weren't in a place to have a special needs child. I was again shocked. I definitely always was in the lower priced house for growth until puberty, but according to my grandmother, by the time I was 8 months old, I was hitting all the markers for regular mental development. I have an MS in mathematics from a tier 1 university. I was an athlete in high school and I never had any issues in school beyond being really horrible in art class. I'm married with a child. I'm a fully functioning adult with a great career and a family of my own, and it hurts to know that I was given up because of the slight chance that I wouldn't turn out to be perfect. Part of me feels like I miss out on life with siblings. I was raised as an only child, and that I could still have a chance to know them and love them, and that my daughter would have a chance to have cousins. My youngest siblings aren't even in elementary school yet, and I could have a normal sibling bond with them or at least be part of their lives from a young age, and I wish that I had that chance. I'm not angry at my birth parents for giving me away. I don't hate them. I'm hurt, but I'm not angry. I am angry that they've requested I not reach out to my adult siblings, and I'm considering doing it anyway. Should I ignore my birth parents' wishes and reach out to them anyway?
Storytime about how I found out I had a stalker. This gets really scary, so let's start. I was living by myself in 2016 in Los Angeles. I was working a lot in commercials and modeling and doing a bunch of stuff, and I had my own little studio apartment on Melrose Avenue. It was super cute and I loved it. I felt very safe. 2 months into the lease, I booked some acting work, so I had to be on set for 3 days in a row, and I stayed in a hotel while I was on set, so I actually didn't get to go home. When I finally got home, I noticed that my fridge had moved about 2 feet to the right, which is very noticeable because that's a large space to cover, and I noticed that my fridge was just in a different place. So I called the landlord and asked her if they had to come into my apartment for some reason, and she said no. I didn't want to freak out, so I just tried to ignore it, and I thought, no one's coming into my apartment, that would be insane. For the next couple of days, I kept trying to justify how my fridge would move. I even thought that my apartment was probably being haunted by a ghost, until one day after an audition, I come home and I find that Part 2, stalker story time. So I come home and I notice that my fridge has moved again, and I know this because I put it back and it was moved another 2 tiles, which is about 2 feet. So I quickly call the landlord and I say to her, can you please check any cameras if you guys have any? And lo and behold, she said, yes, we do have security cameras. Let's check right now. Come over to my place. So I run over to her apartment. She starts pulling up footage from that same day, but it's taking very long, and I ask her to actually check footage from the past few weeks so that I can see if anyone had been in my apartment the first time. So she pulls up the camera pointing to my hallway, but unfortunately the quality was so blurry and my door was just outside of the scope of the lens. Either way, I could still get kind of a glimpse. So she fast forwards through a few hours, and finally I see a shadow. I tell her to stop and rewind and slow it down. And what I see literally made me poo my pants. Someone in a green shirt was right outside of my door and you could barely see their shoulder. Part 3, stalker story time. At the corner of the screen, I see there's a green shirt and it's like the shoulder of someone, and it seems like they just disappeared into the door. Of course, I instantly started to freak out. Can you guys imagine seeing that? I was hyperventilating. I started to cry and she was trying to calm me down. Just to be safe, she called the owner of the building and asked if they had sent a repairman. They said no. Of course, I called the police. They said if there was no immediate physical danger, they couldn't come. So they didn't. Of course, I installed cameras. I had an app so that I could check everything remotely whenever I was out of my apartment, and I never saw anything. After that, I would put the coffee table and a dresser in front of the door so that I could make sure nobody would come in while I was sleeping. I was very paranoid the whole time. I would cry every single day. To this day, I still don't know who it was. I don't know if they took anything. I don't know if they put anything in. I think after that time, they did not come back in, but obviously I did move out a month later. It was very scary. I started taking kickboxing and I still take it to this day. I think self-defense is super important, especially if you live by yourself.
Story time about how I woke up to my best friend having a seizure. A little background information. So my close friend invited me over to his house to spend the night, and we're gonna call him Jay. Well, Jay and I got to his house, and his parents are really strict, so he had to sneak me in. So he told me to wait by the garage. And as soon as he opens the front door to his house, I hear his parents screaming. So he's inside fighting with his parents, I'm outside freezing my ass off. So an hour later, he comes out to get me, walks me through the garage, and I have to hide in this crawl space. So while I'm hiding in this crawl space, him and his parents are still arguing. And his parents walk past where I was like 5 times. So his mom gets in the car and leaves. She said she was going to kill herself. His dad comes into the garage, starts crying. I literally witnessed him have a mental fucking breakdown. Then his mom came back, said that she hated everybody. So then Jay purposely bangs his head off of the kitchen table 2 times. So when he came into the garage to get me, he had an ice pack on his head. Then we snuck up to his room like for part 2. Part 2. So like I said, he rushes me up to his room because his dad was in the basement and his mom left again, threatening to kill herself again. And while we're upstairs, he starts taking dabs. And we're up for a little bit and then we go to sleep. So at like 8 in the morning, we both wake up. He's on his phone, I'm on my phone, we're not facing each other. And then all of a sudden, I feel the bed start to shake, like a lot. So I turn over and this kid is having a full-blown fucking seizure. Like he's foaming at the mouth, his eyes are literally rolling in the back of his fucking head. So I get up and roll him over onto his side because I didn't want him to start choking. And I'm fucking freaking out and don't know what to do because I wasn't even supposed to be there in the first place. And he's like making all these types of noises, so I go and I run down the hallway, I try to find his parents' room, and I open the door and have to wake them up dead out of their sleep. And I was like, your son's having a seizure. So his mom runs over to the room, and his dad's like, well, who the fuck are you? And why the fuck are you in my house? And I was like, your son told me that I could stay the night last night. Oh, like for part 3. Part 3. So like I said, his dad's like interrogating me right now. So they call an ambulance, his son leaves in the ambulance, they didn't go with him, and his dad's like, you're never allowed in this fucking house again. And then he asked me, did he take anything last night? And I'm like, he did dabs, but like, I didn't do anything because I don't do that stuff. So he goes over to where all of his dab stuff is and starts throwing the glass pieces in the garbage, making sure that he fucking breaks them all. And his mom comes over to me to comfort me because I'm literally like fucking crying because this kid almost died right next to me. And she's like, it's okay, sweetie, like this happens to him a lot. But I felt so uncomfortable because he was like making it seem like it was my fault. So I hurry up and call my mom, and my mom doesn't get there till like 30 minutes because their house is a little bit further away. And for all of you wondering what happened to him, I don't know because this happened this morning.
Here's a story time about when I got sexually harassed by a famous showrunner in Hollywood. I find it extremely important to share these story times because I want to avoid this from happening to anyone else. And of course, I just want to get the story out there so that people can become more educated and aware. I think it's atrocious what's happening in Hollywood, and I just want to do my part. Please like and share this. I want as many people as possible to see this, and I think it's finally time for me to speak up. It was 2016, I was living by myself in Los Angeles, and I was lucky enough to work as an actress. One day I was walking down Melrose Avenue, and I heard a man's voice yell out, hey, hey, right behind me, and I turn around, and right beside me is this strange man, and he says, hey, are you an actress or a model? I replied saying, yes, why? He said, I'd like to have a photo shoot with you. He pulled out his phone and Googled his name because he really wanted me to see how important he was in Hollywood. He insisted about 10 times that I give him my phone number, and because I just didn't have a good feeling about him, I gave him my email address instead. For the next couple of weeks, Part 2. For the next 2 weeks, he would email me almost every single day asking me when I would want to shoot. The fact that he was chasing me so much really turned me off, and I had no desire to shoot with him at all. I was honest with him though, and I said, look, your behavior is kind of odd, so I don't think I'm going to be able to shoot with you. He kept swearing up and down that he didn't have any bad intentions, and he sent me his website so that I could take a look at his past work, and I saw on his website that he had shot with many other models and actresses, so I thought to contact one of them. I messaged one on Instagram, but she did not get back to me. Finally, I gave him my phone number just to see what kind of vibe I would get off of text. He messages me and starts begging to set up a photo shoot. Again, this turned me off. I didn't have a good feeling. I mentioned it to my best friend, and she was like, don't worry, just set up the photo shoot and I'll go with you. This might be a good opportunity since he's a showrunner and maybe the pictures will come out good. We set up the photo shoot, and it had been about a month since we first met. That weekend, my friend and I go to his house for the photo shoot. Thank God I did not go by myself. This is where it gets disturbing. Part 3 is up. Part 3. We show up to his beautiful house with 2 Teslas in the driveway. He tells my friend to go to his office because she brought her laptop so she could do some work. We go to the backyard and we start taking some pictures. We started with headshots, nothing crazy. We shot for a total of 1 minute before he started asking me weird questions. Do you have a boyfriend? Are you married? Do you live by yourself? I answered these questions thinking it was weird, but I just said, it's okay, relax. Then he asked if I masturbated and if I fucked people. I told him to stop taking pictures, and he said, why are you overreacting? What's the matter with you? I was just trying to get to know you. This is what I do with my models. Of course, he was trying to put it on me like I was the weird one. I went to my best friend and I said, we're leaving right now, and she said, what happened? Tell me now. I told her everything he had just asked me, and she said, yeah, let's go. I asked him for the SD card, but he said it was his private property and I couldn't touch it. On the way back to my apartment, I felt violated. I was crying and hyperventilating. My best friend was there with me the whole time. I appreciate her so much. I call my manager and I tell him what happened, and he said, well, we can't do anything against this guy. You don't want to get blacklisted.
Story time about how I broke up my best friend and his girlfriend. So it was our sophomore year in high school, and my best friend and I had known each other since we were like 8 years old. And I've always had a crush on him. Like, anytime he would get a girlfriend, I would try and break them up. And it would work. Well, our freshman year of high school, he started dating this one girl. Well, when he started dating her, he distanced himself from me because she didn't like how much time we were spending together. So a few months go by and my birthday's coming up. And mind you, within these past few months, we only seen each other like twice. And he had me blocked on all social media. Well, our parents were really good friends because we lived in the same cul-de-sac. So my mom invited him and his parents to my birthday party. So at the end of my party, my friends left and him and his parents stayed. And my parents really didn't care if I drank alcohol, so we had like a whole bottle of vodka to ourselves. So we're in the basement and we're taking shots together. Well, I got him super drunk and he fell asleep. And while he was sleeping, I went on his phone and like for part two. And I was able to get into his phone because he still had my fingerprint from when we were best friends. So I unblocked myself on all social medias, and there was an ottoman pushed against the couch, so while he was sleeping, I was able to go lay next to him. So while I was laying next to him, I took a few pictures of us, and I saved them in his camera roll, and I also sent one to his girlfriend, and it was about 1 a.m. Well, she opened it right away, and then she started going off and would not stop calling his phone. So after that, I turned his phone off. So he started to wake up, and then we started drinking more. And then we started fooling around. And while we were doing the nasty, I took a video, but he didn't see it because the phone was in front of me. And I had his girlfriend on Snapchat. So what did I do? I sent the motherfucking video to her. So the next day, obviously, he found out what happened. So then he came over to my house to talk to me, and I told him how I was upset that she was keeping him from me. So he broke up with her and started dating me.
Story time of when I unknowingly hung out with a famous actress's boyfriend. This was back in 2011. I was working at a strip club as a cocktail waitress. I had just broken up with my fiance of a year and a half, and I was definitely ready to start seeing some people and maybe just date. And before you say what I know you're thinking, it is a bad idea to meet guys at a strip club. Don't do it. So this guy comes in with his friends. I had no idea who he was. I'd never seen his face before. I served his table the whole night, and the whole night he just wanted to talk to me. He didn't get any dances from any of the other girls, so we proceeded to talk about acting because he was also an actor. We talked about life, music, and food, blah, 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 blah. He was just so charming. He knew exactly what to say, and I was totally falling for it. Eventually, he asked me for my phone number. I gave it to him. It didn't even occur to me to ask him if he was single or not. I assumed if he was giving me his phone number, he was probably single. As soon as he leaves, he texts me and asks me if I wanted to go to a party he's hosting the following night. I said yes. So the following night, I show up at his house, and I only find him and one other guy. He said everyone else went to get drinks. It definitely scared me that I was alone with him and one other guy that I didn't know, so come back for part 2 and 3. Part 2. So because I'm with this guy at his house and I realize that I'm by myself with him and his friend and I don't know them, I get a little bit nervous and I sit down at the table and I just don't speak for a few minutes. Then I started thinking, should I just go home because this is kind of weird? I don't want to be hanging out with two dudes that I don't even know. By the way, this was taking place in the backyard. I hadn't been inside the house. Finally, a few minutes later, a group of friends show up and there were girls in the group, so I was like, okay, I can relax now. They went inside the house to make drinks, so he asked me if I want to get in the jacuzzi. I said no because I don't have a swimsuit. Then he goes inside the house, brings back a swimsuit, and he's like, don't worry, we have plenty. And by we, I thought he meant him and his friend. Stupid of me, I know, right? Then he puts his hand on my knee and tells his friend to leave to go get his drinks. His friend very obediently leaves, and I was just like, okay, that's weird. As soon as we're by ourselves, he starts trying to kiss me, and he said, hurry up, we only have a few minutes. And then I said, can you slow down? And he said, no, hurry up, we only have a few minutes. And I was like, what are you talking about? And he's like, my friend's going to come back soon. Obviously, it was really weird. I was really uncomfortable, and I had to keep pushing his hand off of me, which was really annoying. So I said to him, I have to go to the bathroom, come back for part 3. So I'm by myself with this guy in the jacuzzi, and he keeps trying to come on to me, and I keep telling him no. Because he was trying to kiss me and I kept trying to push his hand away, I said I have to go to the bathroom. His friend finally comes out like 2 seconds later, which felt like an eternity to me. So he comes into the jacuzzi and this other guy just plays it off and pretends like he wasn't just trying to kiss me, which I just found so weird. So I grab a towel and I go inside the house looking for the bathroom. And as I'm walking through the house looking for the bathroom, I just see pictures of him with this other girl, this other famous actress, and I'm just like, wait a second. He's kissing her in the pictures. Oh, they're on the red carpet in this picture. Oh, this is her boyfriend. And I realize I'm standing in the house of this very famous actress with her boyfriend who's trying to hook up with me. Obviously, I left. He begged me not to leave and he kept texting me. Years later, that actress came out and said that he was abusive and that he tried to choke her, and I totally get that sense from him because he was so aggressive with me too. She even had to get a restraining order from him, but now she's engaged to someone else. And no, I never was able to get in contact with her to tell her what happened.
Seems every night, yeah, all the time I'm calling out to you. Seems every time I take a drink, I'm reaching out for you. Seems I'm always late night texting, reaching out for you. Every morning I find drunken messages spilling the truth on you.
So I, 32, have been married to my husband, 34, for 6 years. Before we got married, he had me sign a prenup stating that our financials would always be separate and the only thing that we would share was an expense account to pay for our household-related fees. The reason for this was because he was making pretty good money and I was in graduate school, so my financial situation was pretty bad, but I signed nonetheless because I understood he wanted to protect himself. Anyway, fast forward to now, I've been out of school for 4 years and I make more than 3 times as much as he does. I've never asked him how much he makes and he's never asked me either. Anyway, 2 weeks ago I told him that I was thinking about buying a new car as the one I had was really old since I had it since my undergraduate days. He wasn't really interested and he just told me to get whatever I liked. So a week ago I decided to make a plunge and get an Audi. I was pretty excited as I always wanted one. At the time my husband was on a business trip and he got back yesterday. I showed him my car and he was really happy for me. However, later he asked me what my monthly payments were as the Audi was pretty new. At this point I told him that I made the purchase in cash and that I had no monthly payments. He was taken back and asked with what money, and I answered that I made more than enough to be able to afford it. He didn't talk after that and I thought that was that. However, a few hours later he came back to me and told me that he thinks we should void the prenup. This is where I might be the asshole because I laughed in his face. I asked him why I would agree to do that and his answer was that we're married and should share our financials. So I told him we've been married for 6 years and yet we've never shared our financials and I was fine with what we were doing. And his sudden change of heart was very suspicious. He called me a bunch of names and stormed out and didn't come home, and I guess he told his family about our fight. They called to berate me and say how he supported me while I was in school. He didn't, and now I'm wondering if I was an asshole. So am I the asshole for laughing in my husband's face? Part 2, I laughed in my husband's face when he asked to void the prenup. I called into work and took a week off. I'm an independent contractor, so I didn't sign any new contracts. I sat my husband down and suggested that we should see a therapist. He refused. I asked him why he wanted to void the prenup. He said because he wanted to combine finances. So I asked to see his bank accounts, and he had been misusing his money and was virtually broke. He basically had less than half of what I spent on my Audi. He had also made a series of bad investments and had apparently sold his property that he owned at NE. But most of his money went to his gambling habit. I knew he gambled, but not at the rate that I saw. I asked where we went from here if he didn't want to go to marriage counseling. He replied that since I made more, he should quit his job and follow his dreams. He wants to be a professional gambler? Is that a thing? I don't know whose money he thinks he's going to use to finance that. I asked him who would support him while he was following his dreams. Since he hadn't supported me, I would also not be supportive. My parents helped me out with the bills while I was in grad school. He flipped out and said that I was lucky to have him and that he should have dumped me for a younger woman. I replied that I should have dumped him for a younger man. I know it was childish, but I couldn't help it. He also said that it was unnatural for me to be making more than he was and that we should have at least 3 kids by now. I confessed that I also lost my shit and told him that the only younger women who would date him were the drunk or desperate ones because he had crazy written all over him. After the whole fiasco, I packed my bags, went to some friend's house, got the number for a good divorce attorney from a friend, and I will meet with him this week and hopefully start the process. I texted my soon-to-be ex that I was filing. His response? He was never going to sign the divorce papers and I was stuck with him whether I liked it or not. Honestly, everything happened so fast that I'm still in shock. I don't even know if I overreacted by talking about divorce so fast. So there's the update. I'm not sure what comes next, but thanks for everything. For some weird reason, my mother-in-law really wants to go into our bedroom whenever she comes over. On one occasion, I followed her as she went upstairs. I was going to get something for my child as the bedrooms are upstairs, and she walked past the bedroom on the main floor and up the stairs behind it. She didn't hear me, and I caught her walking straight into my room and rifling through bills on my dresser. She denied snooping, even though I had just watched her do it, and she said she was just going to use our bathroom because she couldn't find the other ones. She walked right past the one on the main floor and the other one in the upstairs hallway to go into our bedroom. Since that happened, I installed an exterior doorknob that requires a key on our bedroom door and one to the door to our office and spare bedroom. However, she's still always forgetting where the bathroom is and trying the bedroom and office door. This really ticks me off. My husband says that I just get annoyed at this because everything she does drives me crazy, and since we've put locks on the rooms we don't want her in, there really isn't a problem anymore. Well, over the holidays we had my in-laws over for dinner, and before they came I was searching for the bedroom keys. We hadn't used them in a while since we only lock the doors when my mother-in-law comes over. My husband told me that we didn't need to lock the doors since she wouldn't try to get into the rooms, and I insisted that she would because she loves to snoop. We went back and forth and decided to cover the doorknobs in super fine glitter to see if she'd try them. I did this once before, but my husband didn't believe me about that snooping to prove that she'd been in the rooms. Last time she ignored the glitter and we didn't say anything about it, but then my husband couldn't deny that she tried to snoop. So this time I covered the knobs in glitter, and for the office went a touch further and rigged a little folder of glitter over the door to the office before the in-laws came over. I left it one side unlocked, French doors, and it was set so if you walked into the room you would get covered in glitter. My husband goes out of his way to show his mom the main floor bathroom when they got here and specifically asked his parents and sister not to go upstairs. There's a baby gate so the kids can't get upstairs either. Well, guess who had to go to the bathroom and got covered in glitter and had it all over their hands and hair? She completely lost it and started screaming at me, so I yelled back, and now my husband is saying I went too far and that I'm an asshole. My mother-in-law also says that I'm an asshole, but my sister-in-law says I didn't do anything wrong and my mother-in-law deserved it for snooping. My father-in-law is Switzerland. Apparently her car is ruined now too because it's covered in glitter that she can't get cleaned up. Am I the asshole for setting a glitter trap to catch my mother-in-law trying to snoop? Me and my ex-fiance had been together for almost 6 years and engaged for about 4 of those 6 years. I was introduced to her by a close friend at a party and we just clicked. She was attractive, had a great personality, and had similar hobbies as me, which made it perfect. Back in April of this year, I started noticing little changes in her. She started wearing more revealing clothes to work, started putting on more makeup, and etc. To be honest, I had no problem with any of that stuff as it's her body. But what made things worse for me was when she started coming home late from work, or how instead of spending the weekend off with me, since we both had weekends off from work, she instead would always go out. I once had asked her why she never invited me to come out with her, to which she replied it's only girls night out, and her other friends would not be happy if I tagged along as they were not bringing their own meetup with them. It all came crashing down when me and her had a huge fight in June because she had decided instead of going out on a date with me, she told me how she had already made plans with her friends and that it was rude of her to cancel. That was it for me. I fucking blew up on her and we had a huge fight which resulted in her packing her bags and leaving. I didn't hear from her for almost a week, none of her friends knew where she was going, and heck, none of her folks even knew what was going on until she finally contacted me and wanted to talk. Imagine my surprise when she confessed to me that there was another guy involved and how all this time she was hanging out with him and lying to me about hanging with her friends. I fucking blew up. I wanted nothing to do with her and was going to break up with her until she got on her knees and begged me to give her a second chance, which my dumbass self did, but only after she revealed everything to me. It made me sick to my fucking stomach, but in the end, I forgave her and told her to delete all contact with the guy and that I expected to have no contact with him going forward, which she promised, and things kind of went back to before. We were even spending more time together, but that feeling, that trust, wasn't there anymore. Everything was kind of okay until 2 weeks ago when a friend of mine who was visiting another city, which was 3 hours from where I lived, sent me a picture and message saying, "Sorry bro." That broke my already broken heart into a billion little pieces. The picture was of my ex-fiance at a mall 3 hours away from where we lived holding hands with some stranger who I didn't know. I fucking broke down. I was heartbroken. I was so mad because I thought she was at work while in reality she was 3 hours away holding hands with her lover. When I got home from work, I waited for her and decided that I was going to confront her when she got home.